I'm talking to Danny Iny, and he is the co-host of Course Lab. Danny, as an expert in online courses, what is your unique value that you offer?
I think perspective. There are a lot of people who teach in the world of online courses, and their claim to fame is that they've done it once. I've been building online courses very successfully for over a decade. I've taught literally thousands of people in almost as many different niches and industries. And so I have a broad perspective on what actually works, and not just what worked one time for one person at some point in the past, but what works across the board and what works today and going into the future.
So as co-host of Course Lab, tell me some of the highlights of what people might hear when they come to your podcast.
Well, with every episode of Course Lab, we feature a course and creator who is doing something really interesting with their course, either with the architecture of the course in terms of how it works, how it's built, how it delivers transformation, or the business model behind it, what makes it successful, profitable, and a powerful driver for their business, or both.
Transforming your business through online coursework is the way to go. Course Lab is the show to listen to. Danny, thanks for sharing your inspiration with our community today.
Thanks for having me.
You can get Course Lab wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in today.
Today on the Nice Guys podcast, fencing, fighting, torture, revenge, giants, monsters, chases, escapes, true love, miracles. Oh, no, that's The Princess Bride. Running a business is hard. Being a business leader is even harder. The Nice Guys bring in top industry pros to help your business prosper in a tough world. Get real advice from real people to get you real results today. Now it's time for the Nice Guys on Business. Here's your hosts, Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner.
All right, TurnKey podcast community, theater geek turned podcaster. That just about sums it up for David Baer. His podcast, More Perfect Marketing, is more better than just podcasting and more better than just marketing. TurnKey community, today, connecting your business with your podcast is more essential and more important than ever for your business success. So we're going to take a dive into this today because David does a really good job. I've had a chance to listen to some of his episodes. Really good job of not only connecting his business with his podcast, but his guest with his community too. And it's a win for everybody. It's a win for the community. It's a win for the guest. And of course, it's a win for David as well. Let's talk about it. David, welcome to TurnKey Podcast.
Hey, Doug. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right. Theater geek turned podcaster. So go back to your origin days. Tell me about your theater experience.
Totally. So my first theater experience in the professional theater world was when I appeared on the Broadway stage in a musical called Me and My Girl back in 1983.
Wow.
But I actually didn't stick around as a performer very long. I became a professional stage manager. I had my equity card and got into the management side of the business and ultimately became a professional arts administrator. So I ran a 5-theater performing arts center complex for the state of New York for several years. And that's really where I started my marketing career.
I was going to say, all right. So talk about that. How did you get theater gone into marketing? It's not like a far stretch to go from one to the other because they all involve some level of theatrics. So maybe share a little bit about how you got into marketing from your 5-theater experience.
Oh, totally. So my job in that experience was to fill the theaters with events, with rental of the theaters. So we were a presenting organization. We would have major orchestras and national tours of theaters and stuff. We were sort of between New York City and Boston, sort of if somebody was routed through on a tour doing the Northeast circuit, we were typically a stop. And the rest of the time, all of the theaters were empty. I needed to find tenants. So my job was to market it to professionals who needed to rent theaters. And that was my introduction to how do you address some of the things that people need in marketing materials in a way that's going to set your offer apart from every other offer that they're seeing and speak to the things that they're prioritizing as being important to them. And so that was my introduction to marketing.
So what's really interesting about it is that, I never really thought about it from other than a business development perspective, podcasting really does jive really well in the marketing. You're talking about, you understand who your market is. You probably have an offer if you have a podcast of some sort, and you probably at least are trying to connect with your message to a certain degree so that it's a consistent message going out. Talk to our community that's getting involved in podcasting or thinking about doing it or in it now, but just not kind of finding their groove. Connect your podcast with marketing. How does it help you from a marketing standpoint?
There's a bunch of different angles, but the one that leaps to mind most immediately is storytelling and relationship building. And so quickly sort of share the rest of my biography here in a moment. I went from working in the theater industry to, you may recall that I actually became a wine industry marketer.
I do. For some reason, yes. I think I knew that. I don't know why I knew that. Maybe because of my Something to Wine About podcast or something. I don't remember. Maybe we might have had a conversation about it.
We did. And that's what brought me from New York to where I live now in Oregon, because I started doing marketing work in this market and ultimately started a Facebook advertising agency specifically in the wine industry. But while I was in the wine industry, and my job was to help my sales team tell stories about the people who were behind the wine, because we were very much not the order taking kind of wine sales organization. Mm-hmm. We were the storytelling kind of sales organization where you had to hand sell every single bottle. And so if we were trying to get into Danny Meyer restaurants or into, some highfalutin wine shop, well, we needed to be able to have really good stories to tell in order to help the staff in those places effectively pass along the stories to their customers.
Right.
And so I do this very much in the podcasting world as well, is I know that I have a relationship with the people who are listening on an ongoing basis. And so I'm constantly having conversations with my guests, revisiting ideas that I bring up on as many of the episodes as possible. So there's some certain consistency to the point of view, the perspective that I bring to the conversation. When I have a guest on, I will prime them in advance of recording, saying, look, here's my philosophy, my agenda, and I want to talk about what you do through that lens. Mm-hmm. So it helps reinforce a lot of stuff for the listeners who are consistently returning to hear me again and again. And then ultimately, they're hearing different ways to apply these ideas that I try to reinforce. And that's very much what I think I've done in most of the marketing work that I've done in the past, whether it's trying to sell tickets to classical music concerts or getting wine onto great restaurant lists. It's building relationship through storytelling.
So I want to have, if it's okay with you, and not that we haven't had to this point, but I want to have some really deep talk or a real talk about the expectation for our people in our community that are listening to this, who have podcasts or just about to launch a podcast, about the reality of podcasting. Everybody looks at podcasting and they originally think, that's cool. When I start a podcast, maybe not tomorrow, but I'm going to be the next Joe Rogan, or I'm going to be the next Tim Ferriss, or I'm going to be the next Tony Robbins, who come to podcasting with millions of people in their community already. Now, I came to podcasting with 7 people in my community, and I think 5 of the 7 were family members. So, and they're never going to buy anything from me. Number one, what expectations should people have when they get into podcasting? Just like when I hire a marketing person, the reality of it is marketing is not an overnight success. It's a long tail approach to getting your brand exposed to the market. I mean, there is some short-term wins, but it's, for the most part, it's a long tail approach to winning. What should people expect when they first get started? And what should they look to when it comes to success in podcasting?
Okay, let's start with the philosophy that I was mentioning a moment ago that I share on my podcast, which is strategy before tactics. So really thinking about what I'm trying to accomplish strategically. And the first decision I had to make was, all right, what am I trying to accomplish? What are the tactics I'm going to employ to get there? Mm-hmm. And I arrived on podcasting as something that would be helpful to achieve the big picture goals that I had.
Yeah.
So in my case, I have a business where we license intellectual property. Basically, it's a consulting framework that we license to professional marketers, to marketing agencies and marketing service providers. And so my podcast could get by without ever having a single listener.
Repeat that.
I could have tremendous success with my podcast without anybody ever listening to an episode.
All right, don't go on yet. I want to understand. I want my community to understand, because I'm assuming that we're heading in the same direction with a lot of our business development tools and the strategy that we employ. But I want to make sure my community understands, David, how the hell can you do that? No listeners? Where do you get your dollars from? Where do you get your business from?
So there's two pieces to this. And yes, we didn't discuss this in advance.
No, this is great. I love this. You worked into it perfectly. I wasn't leading you. I'm literally just asking you the questions that I want to know the answers. Some people go in a completely different direction, but I'm glad you're going in this direction. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So it happens that I have some listeners, and then I had to figure out, okay, what the heck do I do with these listeners? But in fact, the purpose of the podcast was for me to make connections with people who either were or who had influence in the marketing professional space. And so they are either guests of mine who are coming on to the podcast to talk about their marketing agency and marketing expertise, who could potentially be a future licensee of mine.
Sure.
They are people who have influence or connections among people who could potentially be future licensees of mine. There are people for whom future licensees of mine might be interested in listening to, right? And so I can take that content and use it in my own marketing purposes without somebody discovering it on some feed somewhere.
So when you're dealing with any of those three, and I'm happy to take any or all of them at one time that you want to share, how do you give the impression to the person that's about to sit in that guest seat, so that my community understands this, the impression that, or the comfort level that you are not getting them in the guest seat to sell them, and you don't have that prospect salesperson dance, and you're not, from my experience with you over the last couple of years and getting to know you through, I think JVology, is that how we got together?
That's where we first met, yes.
Right. The last thing you are is like a high pressure guy. I mean, you're just having a conversation. So talk to my community about, how do you get people to feel comfortable with that approach where they don't feel, well, I just bait and switch somebody to get into the guest seat.
Yeah, totally. Well, firstly, I am totally transparent with them about what I do and what I offer. And then I say something along the lines, and this is before we even do the recording, so get them at ease. And by the way, at the end of this recording, I'm not going to sell you a damn thing. In fact, I have no idea whether what I do is appropriate for you. But if you're interested in having a conversation about it, I'm happy to. And that's it.
Got it.
And so it lets them know, okay, I do have something for you, but it's something that you're in control of telling me whether this is a conversation that we're going to be having or not. And frankly, Doug, I will add one other thing, which is I am a super uncomfortable salesperson. I have read your father's book and listened to the stuff that he trained on, and I cannot do any of that stuff.
I can't either. Whenever anybody expects me to be my dad, I'm like, no, I'm too uncomfortable in that. If you want to talk further, you're going to have to make me have a phone call with you or a Zoom meeting. And I do love that. And I do appreciate that. How successful can someone be in the space, and what level of service do they need to have? Can they sell a $20 book this way? Can they sell a $20,000 program this way? Does it matter?
I think, again, going back to the strategic approach, there's a lot of easier ways to sell a $20 book. And so this may not be the approach to take if you're trying to sell your guest a $20 book. If you're trying to sell your listeners a $20 book, that's a different matter. What we sell is a $10,000 upfront investment, and hopefully, if our licenses are successful, several additional payments of $5,000 over the course of a year.
Right.
So it's big ticket stuff, and it has generated licensees for us.
So have you found that you've gotten through using this process, have you gotten any kickback from any, I don't mean dollar-wise kickback, maybe pushback is a better word. Have you gotten any pushback from anybody that sat in that guest seat saying, damn, this guy just put me here because he wants to do this thing to me?
I have not. And I think in part it's what you observed about me a moment ago and the way that I set up the conversation, which is I've had some people who have said at the end of that introduction before we hit record, I've had them say, oh, phew, I have been on some of those podcasts and it's been really uncomfortable at the end. Thank you for saying that.
Right.
And so and for people, again, it's not always people I'm interested in having be a client of mine. It's also people who can influence that. And so I will say something similar, which is, hey, I don't know if you have time. I built a little bit of extra time into the appointment so that after we're done, I'd love to share a little bit about the work that I do with marketing agencies. I know that you're connected with a lot of them and would love to see if maybe there's some people in your circles who are a good fit. Let me know if you're interested in that conversation. Thank you for asking. Right.
And just know if you're listening to this, and even if that felt too forward for you, that is not even something you need to do. You have a built-in process for editing, releasing, and then getting back information from your community, built-in steps where you actually could have that conversation with that person a week before it's about to launch. Hey, look, I want to let you know it launched. If any of that stuff that we talked about during the podcast made sense to have a future conversation, let's do it. When it's launched and comes out, hey, I got a 5-star review on the podcast. Again, tell the truth. If it's something that you actually did, tell them the truth, give them the information. Hey, I got positive feedback from the community. Any of that stuff that we talk about, would it make sense for us to have a follow-up conversation? You have opportunity in there. And I'm assuming that you're always like me. I'm feeling out the scenario to see when it makes the most sense to have that conversation.
I don't have as sophisticated a follow-up process as what you've described. And it's in part because I'm a little lazy and I have a VA in India who is doing all of the stuff around what we do. But ultimately, I have several different places that I can direct somebody. And one of the things that I will ask them is, we've built a community for marketing agency owners who may or may not ever end up doing any work with us, simply because it's the model of a free community and some people, upgrade to the paid community. Right. That's exactly what we're doing. So we have a book club that we host for agency owners, and we will invite everybody as part of the follow-up sequence. So I do have a little sophisticated sequence afterwards. Hey, thanks for being on the podcast. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this when we spoke, which gives me an out in case I did.
Right.
We have this book club. Here are the details. We'd certainly love to have you participate. Here's where you can say yes. And so it gives me an opportunity to get them onto a list that I continue to drip on, where I'm not ever selling them, but I am staying in front of them.
How important is, beyond just the podcast, that conversation that you have during the interview? Do you do a pre-interview, into the interview, into a post-interview follow-up? Do you just do the interview itself without any pre-interview? How important is all of the other stuff that goes in? Or maybe there is none of that other stuff that you deal with.
Yeah, so I only book people through platforms like Matchmaker or Podmatch, where we have the opportunity to vet them a little bit, see their bio. And again, I have a VA who is doing all of this on my behalf. And I have very, very strict guidelines for who can and who cannot be a guest. So a lot of the stuff that I want to know about them, we learn in advance of them getting booked. And occasionally I will see somebody who ended up on my calendar because I'll get a notification. I'll go check them out quickly on LinkedIn and I will tell Grace, oops, you made a mistake on this one. I'm not available for this one. Please cancel it. And that's rare, but happens. I do not schedule 2 separate times to meet with them. I'm just way too busy to be able to accommodate that.
Good.
And so in the calendar form that then, sends them a confirmation email, it says, we're going to be recording a 30-minute podcast. I've set aside 45 minutes. Here's the agenda during that time.
Yep.
And then I outline, first 10 minutes are just us chatting. We're going to discuss sort of the logistics, the housekeeping stuff. We'll record, and then a few minutes just to sort of wrap up. In the questions that I ask in that calendar booking, I ask for very, very simple stuff. So I hopefully can get it. I think it's there's 3 questions. The question number 1, give me a bio. I don't care what the length is because I'm not going to use it anyway.
Getting a flavor. Just getting your flavor.
Number 2, what is the big takeaway you would like listeners to have gotten from our conversation? Because that is the most important question for me, to be able to know how to guide the conversation. and how to extract my agenda of reinforcing the motifs that I like to reinforce through whatever it is that they've said they want the takeaway to be. And then number 3, what is the one link you would like us to mention at the end of the episode?
Hal, an excellent job. I mean, again, I think we're traveling on parallel planes together, but we've arrived there separately. We have not talked to each other about how we do what we do. And a lot of the things that you are doing are the same things that I'm doing. There probably is some formula out there, or this is just I've made so many freaking mistakes over the 1,300 episodes of my Nice Guys on Business show, our anchor show, to realize this is the way to do it. Stop having this preliminary conversation with people. Just bake it into the meeting time and you'll have the same end result anyway. Yeah. And all the other stuff too. How much during your interview are you trying to figure out? Because we've talked about a few different people. We've talked about that guest to potential client, a guest to potential referral source, and the guest to potential affiliate, the guy that doesn't compete, but aligns his message with yours. How much of that conversation that you have with them is helping you fine tune that even further, or is none of it? Again, I'm just trying to get a flavor for.
Yeah, I'm not thinking about selling them or any of that during the conversation because I'm having a conversation with them.
Right.
And I am a big fan of 2, maybe 3 interviewers, and they're sort of geographically specific. But when I was growing up in New York, I used to listen to a guy named Leonard Lopate on the WNYC, the public radio there. I used to listen to Terry Gross. I still do listen to Terry Gross on NPR out of the Philadelphia station. And I loved listening to and watching Charlie Rose on PBS. And they all have a very similar interviewing style, which is having a conversation. And I've noticed that a lot of what I've observed from them has seeped into the types of conversations I have, where I often don't even ask a question. I make a statement, and it's rare that it's not that my guest doesn't pick up on the fact that it's their turn to talk. But
okay, but wait. So I'm curious. Can you give me? Because I have no idea what that even means. So can you share one of those with me, just so I understand what that even means? And maybe someone in my community might say, "Oh, that's great. Let's do that."
Yeah. So instead of saying, "Can you share what that means?" you could have said to me, "Oh, that's really interesting." So instead of asking a follow-up question, you just make a statement, and then you're quiet. And it's awkward enough that I feel like, I need to jump in and continue talking.
It's my turn. I'm really curious about the "it's my turn." I love that. I have to become a student of that. I got to listen to because I feel like, all right, I love to challenge myself with each one of my interviews, not necessarily just from I'm going to gain wisdom from this guest that's sitting across from me, but I want to fine tune my interview skills. I can remember when I first got started. And when I first get started, Nice Guy community, TurnKey community. I just called you from my other show, community. I apologize, TurnKey community. How dare me refer to you like you were my Nice Guy community. I remember new to me is anything before episode 100. So it was like, if you're in this and you're at episode 10 and you're trying to figure out why haven't I made any impact with my show yet? Because you're on episode 10, okay? Give yourself another 90 to 200 episodes to get there. What's so great about what David has done is he has done this in a relatively short period of time. You have 120 something episodes, something like that?
Yeah, I think that's what I have published. I have a bunch in the hopper, and as you were speaking, I knew this was going to come up, so I was racing to see what the number is. So I have, let's see, let's click into scheduled here. I have 137 recorded. So
of 137 recorded, 120 some odd that are already up there, David is so far ahead of the game right now. Not because he's got X amount of extras recorded, but because of the wisdom that he has learned. And I couldn't even find my ass for a hole in the ground with the difference between what he has done and what I have done at the point you are in your career. And I know that has a lot to do with your business acumen and the fact that you are a marketing smarty guy and no disrespect at all great things. I came at this from such an ignorant perspective. I've stumbled on some of these and I'm still learning at episode 1300 plus. Many of the things that I need to learn.
By the way, that was a really good example of what we were just talking about.
I did it. I was trying not to ask a question and I did it. I just wrecked it all.
You did a great job there. So what I was thinking as you were talking about that is first of all, I still don't know what I'm doing either, particularly when I get somebody who I'm in extreme awe of because of the things that they've accomplished, and I just don't want to look foolish or screw up or ask a stupid question.
Well, let me know when that guy comes across, because I know that ain't me. I like just having a good conversation with you, David. This is
totally.
Good.
And you know what? That's ultimately what I discover once I get into the conversation with those people too.
Yeah.
But look, when I first did webinars and I screwed them up totally, right? I was uncomfortable with the technology, and I would mention that I was uncomfortable with the technology. And then I realized, I shouldn't talk about,
I think you should, though. I so think you should. I think that's so genuine and not a manufactured genuine, like so many webinar masters and podcasters try to create this manufactured genuine bullshit, which is really what it comes down to. Have a good conversation and learn it. And I think you've just listening to those couple episodes, I think that you have learned that easily and quickly.
All right. Well, here's another example then of the point that I was attempting to make before you had a counter disagreement there. Well, if you go and you look at somebody who is super successful and polished on YouTube, and then you go back to their early videos, they're very, very different in the quality of their delivery. And so this is really just a hurdle that you have to get over and force yourself to get through. I certainly feel like I'm still getting through it, and I'm not, thousands of episodes, although I used to have a wine podcast. I don't know. I think I did maybe 300 something episodes of that, but that was like 8 years ago. So,
you were doing it when it was hard. It was hard, man. You had to do everything manually. You had to have your gerbil call a VA that was, through a boat and try to figure out how to make it all come together. And it took like 6 weeks to publish an episode because technology sucked.
Yes. Well, I don't even remember what I had to go through. I remember using Libsyn. I think
what
I was using.
They're still around. They're the granddaddy of them all.
But that's all I remember about it. But I still am learning. And 137 episodes recorded, and another 15 on the calendar waiting to be recorded right now.
What would you consider success in podcasting? How do you know that you're achieving? What metric or what KPI are you supposed to hit in order to say, you know what, this is working for me because I do have, and maybe you can teach me something, I would love it here. How do I talk to my clients that are struggling with defining what success is, and while they're defining it and trying to figure it out, say, I don't want to do this any longer because I quit, because I'm not successful at it. And for me as a podcast producer that works on a subscription program, everybody pays once a month to belong to my club. The people that go away stop paying also. So I don't want to necessarily salvage them just for my bottom line. How do I salvage them from themselves giving up when it comes to podcasting, in your opinion?
Okay, well, I don't know that I can give you a
Give me the universal answer, damn it.
Yeah. And here's the funny thing. This is my 4th podcast of the day. I interviewed one person today, and this is my 3rd time being interviewed today.
Oh boy, sorry.
I'm
sorry.
And on an earlier interview, somebody asked me a very similar question about return on investment. What's the right percentage of return on investment in your marketing? And I said, that's not an answer I can give. And here's why. Because you need to understand the role that podcasting plays in your business to be able to apply the goal that you're trying to achieve and then connect the podcast to that goal. Right?
Yeah.
So if my goal is to get or be introduced to, one new prospective licensee for our business a month from podcasting, I haven't articulated that goal until now. So that just, I just made that up. And I have a secondary goal, which is to have authoritative evidence that I actually know what I'm talking about, or that I'm an expert in the area that I tell people I'm an expert in. Well, I've already accomplished my goals.
Right.
And so finding something that you can say, this is why I'm podcasting, and this is a number that I'm going to apply to it, or I need to have content that I want to put on social media to demonstrate that I'm an expert, and all it takes is me recording for 20 minutes a day, 3
Amen,
times,
brother. Amen. I feel the same exact way. And it's like, okay, well, what do you mean? So you're saying that because no one has called you, Mr. Client that just quit, because no one has called you as a result of listening to your show and taken action through your call to action to hop onto your list and then go down your funnel and then buy the shit that you are selling, that's why you're telling me you're not going to continue podcasting. How about the 17 people that you had on your podcast over the last, 25 episodes that you could have built a relationship with, but because you're not looking for that keyword, here it is, opportunity. Turnkey community, if you're not looking for opportunity at every corner that you can find it, guest a client, guest a referral source, guest a affiliate, guest a, hey, let's figure out, I love having this conversation with David. Let's figure out after this is over how he and I could work together on something, because we have this universal feeling for let's try to make the world a better place to live. For those of you that are in my community that are focused on that fucking ego metric of downloads, can you get that out of your head? And I keep hearing I know about this guest a client thing. How do I get more listeners? Screw the more listeners. You don't need any. David told you that at the beginning of this. Oh my God. This is your chance. Can you just fill in the blank here while I breathe a little bit? I have to have some more of my kombucha because I live in California and I'm just...
You were doing so well when you just finished that rant on a statement and then you turned it into a question asking me to take on, and I was so ready to jump in there.
I
own
got to
keep practicing
I own it. I own it now. It's fine. I know how to do it. You've given me permission to call it something. I just have to come up with a name for it now and then market it.
Good. And then it'll be your original idea or your unique mechanism.
That's right.
There we go. I think there's so much to that point that you were making, which is ultimately, you mentioned downloads, and I wanted to see, like, cumulatively.
I haven't looked at my downloads.
Cumulatively, over the year and a half that I have done this thing, it is like 30-something thousand downloads over the 100-something episodes that are published. I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad.
Well, I know that more than 200 is above average, and probably more than 1,000 is in the top 1%.
Is that a per episode?
Yeah, per episode at the 30-day mark. I think they measure it at the 30-day mark. If you have more than 200 downloads, you're probably at the 70 percentile. But it doesn't matter. Like, I have a show called Ford Mustang The Early Years. If I got more than 100 people to tune into that show every week, and fortunately I do, because I know what my call to actions create this amazing tidal wave of opt-ins, I don't have an opportunity to put that show in front of 100,000 people. So depending on your niche or your niche, depending on if you're fancy or not, you may not have more than 50 people listen to your episodes, which is fine. If you're able to achieve the goals that you had set, as David said before, put strategy before tactics. Is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. Put strategy before tactics. Hey, I love that idea of what did you do this episode or this month or this year to build your influencer status? What did you do this year to grow your community? If you have those as your metrics, you probably will be seeing some level of success because you're using the right metrics to measure success.
Yes. And again, congratulations on the statement thing. I don't think that there's any question in my mind about whether this is a useful activity for me and for my business. And so, in addition to all the things that I have talked about in terms of business growth, whether it's meeting people or whether it's demonstrating authority, the other thing that I get to do is learn from all of my guests really cool stuff.
Free coaching.
Right?
Free
and
coaching.
Whether it's free coaching or whether it's a new idea or a different perspective. By the way, I'm one of those rare birds that has like friends on the other side of the political aisle. So I'm open to different perspectives. And so this is an interesting opportunity for me to be exposed to ideas about marketing or tactical areas about marketing. I don't know, and I don't care anything about TikTok, for example, but I'm happy to have somebody come on and explain it to me through the lens of strategy, because it helps me grow professionally. And what I've discovered is I've also amassed an audience who have found me in some way. I'm not doing very much to promote the episodes, but I've amassed enough of an audience that I have people who have been interested and willing to join an email list that I have, and then I have to like continue to tell them stuff. So I'm using the stuff that I learn or the ideas that are shared on episodes to then help populate social media content, emails that I send out once a week, not selling anything because I don't sell things to, general business owners, etc.
Right.
So there is an upside to all of that as well.
Okay, we can't go on any longer. We cannot. We're talking from the same side of the coin. If there was something that you could go back and change about what you have done over the last 127 episodes or 130 plus that you have in the can, is there anything that you would change?
I'm not sure that there's anything that really stands out as something I need to change. I had a bunch of my early episodes. I didn't have my ideal anything on with me. In fact, I think I did solo episodes at the beginning. I interviewed people who didn't really have the ability because I needed to get my feet wet. Those are not my best episodes. And forgive me, some of those early guests, if you are hearing this.
That's right.
But I'm quite happy with what it's accomplished because I've had specific outcomes that I had in mind. And so I'm okay with the fact that not every episode is a winner because that's not the goal.
Right. They say success is a jumbled mess rather than a straight line. Would you agree? And has that been the way that your show and that your business has played out?
The show is certainly a jumbled mess to some extent, but nobody sees that from the front end. I'm the only one who know. Well, me and my VA, we're the only ones who know that.
Right.
And as for my business, no, it's absolutely not a jumbled mess. I will never admit that publicly.
You can't ever admit that. Well, I mean, to achieve where you have gotten to, the path to there, maybe I worded that wrong. The path to get there was a jumbled mess. I mean, a jumbled mess. I mean, you just ask any of my clients, while I service the hell out of them, I make up in enthusiasm and over delivery than I do in intricately built, solid concrete systems. And we work towards all of them. But every time we have a great system, somebody else says, hey, do you think we could offer this service? And it is a service that I think would be valuable for our clients. We could keep the same archaic system that we have, but let's build upon the system that we have and keep making it better. So I'm always off balance just a little bit. Shouldn't we be, as entrepreneurs, always a little off balance?
Oh, I think that is true. And I've just been in the process of writing the draft of, I want to say, our new book, the one that my business partner and I will be releasing sometime in the next month or so. But really, I wrote it. He just gives me feedback. And I tell the story of all of the mess that came before the structured success that we have now. And so, yes, absolutely. We needed to make a whole bunch of mistakes, just like every entrepreneur out there, before we were able to find the sort of the magic formula that has allowed our business to see the success it has now.
So before I hit record, I had asked you what would be a success for you, and you were gracious and kind enough to say, I just want to deliver really good content. I don't have anything for your listeners. And then I made you give me something that you have for my listeners, in spite of the fact that you did not want to. But could you share what we decided? Because I cannot freaking remember what we decided to give to them. What were we going to do?
Yeah, totally. Well, so I mentioned a moment ago that I had to figure out what to do for my listeners because I was getting lots of questions emailed to me from listeners. And so I'd figured, okay, I'm putting a newsletter together, and it's the More Perfect Marketers newsletter for the More Perfect Marketing podcast. And I'm happy to have folks join our community. And the community is just a newsletter, by the way. At least it is now. And there's nothing for sale. Actually, I think there is something for sale. There's a bunch of old courses that I have. And if people have questions for me, I'm happy to help them. But I'm really not selling anything.
You got to dust off the courses before you take the first version of it. Where can they get that?
Pick it up at mpmcommunity.com.
All right. And we'll make sure we put a link in the show notes for that over on the TurnKey show notes. If you don't know how to get to the show notes in your podcast, or shame on you. I'm not telling you how to get to the show notes. David Baer, my brother in podcasting, thank you so much for sharing your message today.
Thank you, Doug.
Hey, it's Doug Sandler. When I started the Nice Guys on Business podcast along with my co-host Strickland Bonner, honestly, we were clueless. It took us nearly 2 years to figure out how to make money, but when we did finally turn the faucet on, it stayed on. And I'm sharing my free 7-page report with you, 5 Ways to Make Money Podcasting. Do you ever wonder why some shows make money and others don't? How would you like to skip the BS and get right to the facts about making money? How can you turn your podcast from a time suck to a bank account builder? And which one strategy have we used with our Nice Guys on Business podcast to make a 6-figure income? Finally, what strategy is ultra effective if you have an interview-based show? If you'd like a copy of our free 7-page report, 5 Ways to Make Money Podcasting, simply go to turnkeypodcast.com/money. That's turnkeypodcast.com/money. Or click the link in the show notes.
Friday advice, and Tuesday interviews with people far more interesting than they are. Fill up your week with the nice guys. Have fun storming the castle.